NBA news, we've got the Jazz in Brooklyn tonight. But speaking of New York, Giannis Antetokounmpo popping up in trade rumors.
He and his people have begun to discuss, according to Shams Charania at ESPN, whether or not he should stay in Milwaukee long term. So they're talking about that with Milwaukee's front office, which basically I think means Milwaukee has given them permission to go and set up trades with other teams, and then Milwaukee can decide if they like any of those trades or if that's a starting point. That's kind of how this stuff tends to work. So we will see where that goes. I expect Milwaukee to trade Giannis at some point, whether it's this season. It's kind of hard to do in season. For a player like Giannis to get to his $54 million salary, you're going to have to take several players back, unless you're trading him for another $54 million player. There's just not many of those guys. So you're going to have to take multiple players back, which makes it difficult because you do have roster limits of how many players you actually have on your roster. So unless it's multiplayer, multi-trade, then the money gets really difficult. It's just
you can assume they'll package Thanasis.
You would think, Thanasis is going to go as well. Like, he's going to go with some of his brothers. But it's hard to do these in season. So I'm a little skeptical it'll get done this year.
If this was even a possibility, why didn't Milwaukee do it in the offseason?
They should have. They made the big swing buying out or essentially waiving and stretching Dame to go and get Miles Turner, hoping that would allow them to continue to keep this dream alive or keep the band together a little bit, the band being Giannis and his two brothers that also play for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, and the consultant, Doc Rivers, was going to be the one to make that symphony hum, huh?
Yeah. So, no, this ship has been not even gradually sinking, but pretty dramatically sinking for a while now. And you can go back, and if you want to criticize Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith and the Jazz for trading Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell too early, I think there's an argument to be made there. They also didn't want to get to this point where this is constantly hanging over you. The body is dead, and you're just trying to figure out what you can get back for it.
Joining us now, he makes the magic happen for Spotrac, and he joins us, I believe, from Orlando. He is Keith Smith. Keith, would you agree that Orlando is the second most fun city in the United States?
If you like theme parks and stuff like that, sure. Why not? I mean, I guess it's usually pretty nice weather here. So, yeah, I mean, that's, those are two components for fun, so I'll take it.
It comes in at number 2 behind Vegas, and that would be a different kind of fun.
On what's his
ranking?
Yeah,
it's a completely different kind of fun.
Oh, I have no
Weather might
idea.
be similar, but different kind of fun.
Different kind. Yeah, I don't know.
And dry versus humid.
True. Indeed.
Really dry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I go out there every year for Summer League, and people are like, oh, man, are you boiling? And I'm like, yeah, at least it's dry. I'm like, in Orlando at this time of year, I walk outside, I'm like, why did I shower? I'm already soaked completely through my shirt.
Yeah, I lived in Orlando for a little while, and you shower, and you're wet for the rest of the day. It's not ideal. All right, well, let's talk about the big news. We'll get to the Jazz, but the big news, obviously, is Giannis Antetokounmpo maybe in the process of asking out, and who knows, after his latest injury, which happened yesterday, I don't know if we're going to see him again in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. Do you think this happens in season? These huge contracts are hard to move while the year is going on.
They can be, but this is where I like to remind people Jimmy Butler had a massive contract and got moved to a team that was hard capped and apron issues and everything else. So as long as teams can get creative and there's, where there's a will, there's a way, and they can make this happen. I do think we're as close as we're ever going to be to Giannis getting traded in season now. I think all of this, they're having discussions about the future. I think this is how do we frame this where we both are kind of, hey, it's run its course here. We've been together for, a decade or so now, or maybe even a little bit more, 12 years. We climbed the mountain together. We won a title, and it's just we're going to go our separate ways. But let's do what's right for Giannis, do what's right for the Bucks. I think that's more of the conversation piece here than hey, what can you do to kind of salvage this situation?
What kind of package do you think Milwaukee would get?
Yeah, well, that's where it's really interesting, right? Because there's two things for the Bucks side with that. One is, do the Bucks want to blow it up and rebuild? They don't have their own picks. They owe picks to the Pelicans/Hawks and then to the Trailblazers from the previous trades they made to build teams around Giannis. So that's one question there. Now, sometimes teams hit a point where they say, you know what? The picks are gone. They are what they are. It's best for us to fully rebuild. Let's get young talent. We'll get some other draft picks, and we'll move it forward. So you could go that way, or do they want to win now package where it is, hey, give us some guys who are pretty good and they can kind of help maybe we stay around the playoffs and those kind of things. That's the decision. And then it also comes down to, does Giannis kind of try to force an issue and say, I want to be on Team X. That's where I want to go. And does that limit the trade market? That's, again, I think that's part of probably what's being discussed right now is, all right, hey, how do we make this mutually beneficial for both of us?
The Hawks are interesting, owning some of the Bucks picks and then also having their own star in Trae Young, who they'd be interested in moving, or seems like right now they should be interested in moving. Plus, they've got a bunch of young talent, and yeah, being able to give the Bucks back some of their picks has to be appetizing for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you did a deal with the Hawks, just taking players out of it, and you got back that pick, if you're the Bucks, if you kind of continue as a lottery team, you could have 2 lottery picks in this draft, which is an absolute loaded draft class full of really good players, and you could really be setting yourself up to move forward very quickly here. They also have the Hawks have Kristaps Porzingis, $30.7 million expiring contract. They are not bound by any kind of hard cap that really matters for them. They've got more than enough wiggle room under a first apron hard cap that they've triggered to make moves, to do things. So I think they're in a place where they become really interesting because, like you said, you could deliver draft capital. You could deliver a star if they wanted Trae Young. If they didn't want Trae Young, you build something based around Porzingis, and you're coming back with a Giannis, still a bunch of talent. And if I'm the Bucks, I get picks, I get a player, I get maybe some expiring salary, I get Zachary Risachet. I feel pretty good about that. That they're a really interesting trade partner. But the big thing would be, does Giannis want to be in Atlanta? Is he going to sign there long term? And that's part of the backroom conversations they're going to be happening between these front offices and Giannis's reps here over the next few weeks.
If you were Austin Ainge running the Jazz, would you look to be adding or subtracting before the trade deadline?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's funny. I was just having this conversation with someone else this morning where I said, people still have this perception, I think, of the Western Conference of, well, if you're under 500, you have no chance of being anything. And it's, that's not how it is this year. The West is nowhere near as deep as it used to be. I mean, I think as it stands right now, the Jazz are only a couple games out of being in one of the hosting play-in tournament games. So they're in a spot where, yeah, I think you could, if it was the right kind of move. I'm not pushing all my chips in and going and getting somebody unless I really believe this is a long-term, multi-year guy for us. But I'm also not going to be upset if they say, all right, let's go get some guys that can help us push forward. We think, a good step forward is be a playoff team this year, and then we'll be even better the year after that. We'll still have flexibility, still have all this young talent. We can kind of go forward. And then if they decide, all right, it's just not the right year, the best thing for us is to kind of pull the rug out again, bottom this thing out, keep our pick because it's top 8 protected. Let's keep that pick that extinguishes that obligation fully. Maybe that is the best way to go. I think the good news for the Jazz is they have some flexibility, but I think we're starting to near the end of the light. There's light at the end of the tunnel where it is. We're no longer in this. We're just in asset collection rebuild mode. I think we're getting closer to it's time to start adding real talent and moving this thing forward.
Is Oklahoma City going to scare teams off from going all in while they have this juggernaut put together the way it seems like some Eastern Conference teams didn't want to compete while LeBron was in the Eastern Conference, and when he left, they thought maybe, hey, now's our time to buy. Are the Thunder going to scare teams off of trying to improve too dramatically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I always go back to, and I'm glad you referenced those Cavs in the Warriors, right? We went through a 4-year period where you could have wrote it in the prior July that it's going to be Cavs Warriors. Well, I'll see you in June, right? And that happened 4 years in a row, and we all knew it was kind of coming. And I always think about those Houston Rockets teams where they were like, man, the Warriors are this powerhouse, but you know what? We're going to go for it. We're going to try to challenge them. They're going to beat us. They're going to have to beat us. And they got close a couple times taking down the Warriors. In the East, you had the Celtics kind of say, all right, you know what, we're starting to build this thing up. We're not going to shy away. We'll go add some guys when we think it's the right time. And they went out and added Al Horford. They went out and added Gordon Hayward. That didn't go well, but they still made the move. You had Miami kind of say, we're still going to try to build this up to try to push after, LeBron was with the Cavs. So I think that's a long way of saying I don't think teams are going to be super scared. I think teams are respectful of the Thunder. I think everybody, would be lying to you if they said they're not absolutely the prohibitive favorite to repeat. But I think look at say Denver pushed them to 7 games. The Pacers pushed them to 7 games. If there was a bad shooting game in that series or something goes a little bit different in Game 7, maybe they're not the champs, and maybe things do go a little bit different. So I do think teams will go after it because you don't make the NBA at any level, player, coach, or general manager, without being supremely confident in your ability to build a winner.
Two-part question, but it's certainly related. What do you think of the Clippers stinking up the league, and why cut Chris Paul in the middle of the night?
Yeah, it's to the first part. I'm Charlie Brown with Lucy holding the football with the Clippers. I mean, they get me every year. Like I got to quit them. And I don't know, what it says about me that I keep looking at them like, man, they're loaded with talent. They're gonna figure this thing out. And then every year they seem to be a little disappointing, despite last year when they're actually probably one of the more fun groups that they've had that's overachieved to what we thought. As far as the Chris Paul part goes, it's not a good look. It's especially with all the reporting of Chris Paul was trying to hold people accountable. Well, you should be held accountable. You stink. You're underachieving. You're 6-16, and that's after a win last night. And I know Lawrence Frank in his statement, and then in his conversation with the media is like, hey, we're not putting this on Chris Paul. But then you can't be mad that Chris Paul was like, hey, we're not doing the things we need to be doing. And I think with them, they looked at it and said, you know what? The juice is just not worth the squeeze here anymore. Chris Paul he's not as productive for us to put up with this. He's making, us unhappy. He's making the coaches unhappy. He's making the other players unhappy. We just got to move on and go in a different direction. We're not good enough, nor is he good enough to put up with this right now. And that's a little sad that that's the way it's kind of playing out here for Chris Paul and what looks like it's going to be his last season.
There are a lot of disappointing teams, I think, this season, Clippers among them, that we're talking about. Is anyone more disappointing right now than the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I would say the Clippers are, just because they are absolutely awful. But, yeah, I mean, the Cavs are down in the play-in range right now. And I said coming into the season, I didn't think the Cavs and the Knicks were going to push overly hard in the regular season because I think they were kind of in their arc as a team where it is, hey, we've done the thing of win a whole bunch of regular season games. It hasn't gotten us to an NBA Finals yet. Never mind win a title. So I think we'll be good, but if we finish behind Detroit or Orlando or Atlanta, it is what it is. We're not going to worry about it too much. And then when you look at the Cavs, though, you kind of took a little bit of a laissez-faire approach. Then you had a bunch of injuries on top of it. And now all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's like, we don't want to be in the play-in tournament. Because when you're down in the play-in tournament, all it takes is a bad shooting night, and all of a sudden your season is over. And you're like, wait, what happened? We were supposed to be a title contender, and now we're done in the middle of April. So I do think as they get a little healthier, we'll see them push, but it's kind of unfortunate they put themselves in a position to have to push at all because they are starting to fall and lag behind some of these other teams, and they don't want to be down there in the playing range. So, yeah, absolutely fair to call them disappointing.
Think the Lakers are for real?
Ish. I did some of the things with the Lakers, if you look at some of their kind of underlying metrics, are not very good. They don't really blow teams out when they've lost. They've tended to get blown out. They're very, heavily dependent on, 3 guys offensively and Luka, Reeves, and LeBron. So there's some stuff. But, again, it's Luka, Reeves, and LeBron. Those are 3 really, really good players. And I think they're going to go into any game feeling like, hey, we have a chance because Luka can win a game all by himself. Austin Reeves is starting to approach that. And LeBron he's not LeBron all caps, but he's LeBron still. He's still, somebody you have to respect. But I do think, they're nowhere near the Thunder. They're not even on their realm as a team. And I think they're behind Denver, Houston. Even if they're ahead of them in the standings, I would not favor them to beat those teams in a playoff series. I think those teams are enough better. But maybe they've got another move in them. We'll see. They've got some tradable salary. So, we'll see what it looks like. If they could do something else, that will make me believe in them a lot more.
Keith, I get the feeling that there are 7 teams that were at the top of last year's draft who wouldn't trade their own player for the other player that's also playing great out of this class. Would Con Knippel be on the trade board for VJ Edgecombe? And, the Jazz probably wouldn't move Ace Bailey for those guys right now either. This is just a very, very good rookie class that seems like it's going to permeate throughout the NBA for the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely is. I mean, there was all this talk coming into last college season about Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper. And, you had even people convincing themselves like Harper or Bailey over Flagg. And I was a Flagg guy from the beginning because I saw him play a lot at Montverde Academy down the road from me here in Orlando. And I was, super high on his ability as a player. But I liked Bailey a lot. I had Ace Bailey number 3 on my board behind Dylan Harper when it all settled. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the emergence of Edgecombe and Con Knipple have been really good. There's some guys playing even further down in the draft that are starting to show some stuff. I think this is a really good draft class. And this draft class coming up is just absolutely loaded as well, even, more good talent. I mean, the NBA is just got all this great talent feeding into it on top of, some of the guys. Because we're starting to lose the LeBrons and Chris Paul and Al Horford and eventually Stephen Curry, and those guys kind of age out of the league. I think we are set up in a place where this league is just loaded with talent and guys that are going to be really, really good for a very long time. I think the NBA is in as good of a spot as it's been for a number of years, and part of that is these recent draft classes.
Keith, we love having you on. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Keith.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's Keith Smith. He writes for Spotrac.com.
I like Keith a lot. Good follow.
Oh, Keith's great.
Good Twitter follow.
Do you think the Lakers are for real?
No. Their net rating is on par with the Phoenix Suns, which is the 7th best team in the West. And I think net rating is a little goofy, but it does bear out over a long enough period of time. So I think they're good. I think Luka's a great player, and I think Austin Reeves is a good player. I think LeBron's a very good player. But, when push comes to shove, can you count on DeAndre Ayton to win you a playoff series? The reason they couldn't get anywhere in the playoffs last year is because they didn't have anyone to stop Rudy Gobert. And everyone loves Rudy. We know how good Rudy can be, but not Rudy because he can score 20 points a game, and they ran into that. So everything they did awesome. They couldn't slow Rudy or Julius Randle. It's DeAndre Ayton's not stopping that.